Namaste. Great to see you all today. We hope that you, your friends, and your family are healthy during these times. On behalf of the New York Ganesh Temple, I want to warmly welcome all of you to this month's Hinduism Learning Series, Session 38, organized by the Young Professionals team of the New York Ganesh Temple, AKSHAYAM. Today's topic will be the importance of questioning in the Sanatana Dharma. Our guest speaker will be Dr. Purna Prasad. And on behalf of the New York Ganesh Temple, we want to warmly welcome him and thank him for joining us this afternoon. He'll be starting off with an introductory prayer.
Thank you, Abhirami. I would like to thank the temple authorities and also Dr. Uma Mysurkar for her gracious, platform to talk to you, learn from you, and hopefully it'll be a completely knowledge-charged 1 hour to come. So as Abhirami said, we are going to start with a prayer. And after the prayer, we will see what is the purpose of the prayer. So we will start with that question itself. You don't want to just say a bunch of words that mean nothing in a language that we are not very familiar with, but to know why do we say that. So let's start with the prayer. Harihi Om Jayati Parasharasonuhu Satyavati Hridayanandano Vyasaha Yasya Asya Kamalagalitam Vangmayam Amritam Jagat Pibati Bhujaga Bhoga Bamudyamya Hridyam Nijabhujam Dakshinam Lakshanadyam Lalita Mudrikta Vignana Mudram Bhaja Bhaja Anantamitya Alapantam Pranatavan Praninam Pranabhutam Pranatibhi Prinaye Purna Bodham Bhavadavoshnena Tatapyamanan Bhuvi Param Natham Aprekshamanan Bhuvanamanyena Chanyena Doshna Bhavatu Bhirma Itinas Santvayantam Pranatavan Praninam Pranabhutam Pranatibhi Prinaye Purna Bodham Narayanam Suragurum Jagadekanatham Bhakta Priyam Sakala Lokanamaskritancha Traigunya Varjitamajam Vibhumadhyamisham Vande Bhavagnam Amara Surasiddha Vandyam Narayanam Namaskritya Naranchaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Shri Krishnarpanamastu Mama Guru Acharya Govinda Panditacharya Namo Namaha. This is a colophon. When you write your research papers, you put the references. Otherwise, it's going to be pilfering. So before we start discussions based on the Vedic thought process and the wisdom of the ancients, we basically give our obeisance to the author who made this possible, that is Vedavyasa. That is the reason we said, Jayati Parashara Sonuhu. He is the son of Parashara, Satyavati Hridayanandano Vyasaha. And then we come to the Acharyas who have bestowed this on us, the knowledge. And then we basically refer to the all-encompassing energy Narayana. Narayana means that which is completely permeable anywhere. Inside, outside, with and without. And that's how we basically start. If you look at Einstein's theory of relativity, when he started that paper that won the Nobel Prize, he basically starts with the thermodynamic equations and recognizes all the scientists who came before him. That's exactly what we did now. Nothing new, nothing different. We acknowledge the source of the knowledge and the entity Vedavyasa who gave it to us, and then the Guru who actually taught us what we know. And then we start our learning. This is a learning series. I am learning from you. Hopefully, we'll be able to learn from each other and then enhance our knowledge and awareness. And that's the reason Abhirami and we decided, let us start with questions, because that's the biggest question. Can we question? Is the biggest question. And the answer is absolutely yes. And as we go on learning, we will know that Vedic science does not exist without questioning. Okay. With that, go ahead, Abhirami. Let's start with the first question.
Sure. Before we go into that, I just want to say a few words about Dr. Purna Prasad. He was trained in Vedic philosophy initially by his grandfather and later came under the tutelage of Dr. Banerjee Govindacharya, an authority on Vedic body of knowledge. Dr. Purna Prasad believes in having a scientific, pragmatic, and realistic view of the Sanatana Dharma and the importance of each person experiencing the beauty and treasures of the Dharma for themselves. Every individual must embark on this experiential journey to uncover their personalized answers that will lead them further down the spiritual path. And so, Dr. Prasad, we are really excited about this topic that we've selected for today. As you mentioned, the importance of questioning the Sanatana Dharma. A lot of young folks who are interested and curious about the different aspects of our ancient Vedic traditions and our rich heritage will have tons of questions to ask naturally, but may stop themselves from asking them, fearing how they will be perceived by the person to whom they pose the question. What makes this session especially valuable is that the temple, with the strong roots that it has, is offering this platform, as you mentioned, for these questions to be asked and for this topic to even be discussed. And so without wasting too much more time, AKSHAYAM has prepared a few questions that we want to ask you. And for the audience watching today, please comment your questions and comments on Facebook, and we'll address as many of them as possible towards the end of the session. So the first question, Dr. Purna Prasad, is, does the Sanatana Dharma welcome and or provide a space for one to even question the framework and or the religious spiritual system?
It's a great question. Sanatana Dharma is not a religious system, but a spiritual philosophy based on your experience. So, if you do not question your experience, then that experience doesn't translate itself to any type of operationable knowledge. Vedavyasaru says in his Brahmasutra Bhashya, any philosophy that is not pragmatic, that is not practical, is not a philosophy at all, period. And unfortunately, as you see in our practices today, no, you can't question. You can't question the holy things. You can't question what has been passed down to you. But in the Upanishads, the Vedic scientists question everything, every word, every syllables. Why do we do what we are doing? Simple example, the framework of Sanatana philosophy is completely on experiences, internal experience, and the expression of that internal experience that one can share. Nowhere in the Vedas it says you have to do this and here are the boundaries. Otherwise, you're going to go to, hell in a handbasket or whatever. No. It says, here are the experiences of the Vedic scientists, the rishis. Kashyapa, Avushchara, Naidruva, Maitri, Gargi, Yajnavalkya, all these people. Very simple. It says, Satyam Vada. Try to tell the truth. Now, what is truth? Again, the question today is, what is truth? And absolutely they answered what truth is, so that we can start meditating on the definition of truth. What is truth? So they said, oh my God, what is truth? How to explain it? Satyam bruyat, priyam bruyat, na bruyat satyam apriyam, priyam chana anritam bruyat, yeshaha dharmaha sanatanaha. You should tell the truth. You should tell the truth that makes the entire humanity happy. Just because you want to tell the truth that makes everybody happy, you cannot lie. That is the definition of truth in Sanatana Dharma. they said. They gave you a path to think. They did not tell you how to think. They will show you the art of thinking, but you have to do the thinking and then get the experience. And from that experience, you basically get it into your very fabric of your behavior. And then you are able to operationalize it for the betterment of the greater good, dharma, period. Any question when it comes to that? So truth itself, one of the biggest notion, entity, word. What is truth? So beautiful. So I'm going to give you a small challenge here. So there's a old man who's walking on in a forest, and he's got all his collections. I mean, his entire life savings is with him, and then he sees that the robbers are following him. Oh boy! So what he does, he basically runs into a house. Unfortunately, it's a house of hermits who are actually meditating, and hides. Soon after, the thieves basically come and say, "Hey, did you see anybody coming here?" So what is truth here? Right? How would you use truth in order to benefit the greater good? If you tell the bandits that there's nobody inside, that's not true. But if you tell them that there's somebody inside, they're going to come and behead him and take his money. So what is truth? What is dharma? When you look at this, then you say, oh my God, it is the greater good. Saying that we have never seen anything that resembles a human since this morning is the truth. Bhagavad Gita says this clearly. The Upanishad says this very clearly. But you can't lie. Here, what you thought was lying became the truth. In some other cases, the truth can become a lie. It is so dependent on the circumstance, but you have to, keep a razor vision on the spirit behind the definition. Go ahead, Abhirami.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Purna Prasad, for that intro answer. So following this, now we know that the Sanatana Dharma welcomes and provides a space for this sort of questioning. So to delve in deeper into that personal experience, so if we embark on this personal spiritual journey, what is then the importance or value in questioning from the individual standpoint?
Sure. It's funny because we question others and we forget to question ourselves. When we are going for a walk, we are looking at the beautiful nature, but we forget that inside there is a person who is enjoying that beautiful nature. So the self is forgotten. The questioning of the self is the first step towards getting the clarity. So in Upanishad, they say there are two steps. First one is the confusion. That's when you ask the question. Then comes the answer, which is the clarification. Number two, there cannot be a question that doesn't have an answer. It's just that we haven't found it yet. So it always starts with the self, questioning the self, and then trying to, get the experience from that question. And it actually manifests in different stages. The maturity of questioning changes as you grow, because there is the very nature of what we call as jiva swabhava. Then there is the impact of the environment, prabhava. There is the genetic force. All these things basically shape your maturity in questioning. And the hope is that question will become more inward so you can find the answer.
Definitely. Okay, great. So if we start with the most fundamental question, is there God? How do you know? How do you go about dissecting this sort of question?
This is an age-old question which has come down from, times immemorial. Is there God? Well, the first thing is people may say yes, or people may say no. That is according to their experience, right? But if you take a scientific outlook, can there be creation without a creator? Forget creator. Can there be an output without a phenomenon? When a black hole is formed, there is perfect laws that plays into picture as to why the black hole forms. Now all the planets are hanging in space. We see the centrifugal forces balancing. So the question is, this entire ecosystem, who created this? Was this created by somebody? Because without creator, there cannot be creation. Anything for that matter. You call him God? Sure. Or do you call that entity an enabler, a catalyst? Many of the chemical reactions will never happen without a catalyst. In fact, Newton's very first law, a body at rest will remain at rest. A body in motion will continue its motion until and unless it is acted upon by an external force. What is that external force? Why did it come? And why did it create this output? The why of what happened is going to be a very important thing in realizing in experiencing the greater good, the greater force, all encompassing energy. The physicists call it the integral of E, that is encompassing all energy. So, is there God? Well, my friend, I can say, in my experience, I have had very practical experiences with the hand of God. But for you to understand or even believe in God, you need to experience it. One beautiful example that my Guruji, Banaja Govindacharya, used to say is, how do you explain the taste of a coffee to somebody who has not tasted coffee at all? It's not like tea. Okay. It's not like orange juice. Fantastic. So what is it like? Have a little and find out. So in the Upanishad, they say, do not deny my experience with your inexperience, experience it. So that is where the question of experiencing God comes, because God, you can't touch. You can't, no bhaiti pragnam, it is beyond everything because it is in everything. That's the problem with God. Very complicated, right? It's in everything. It is without everything. And sometimes we say that, he is sarvaguna because everything is an epithet of God. And he is nirguna because not one thing can explain his complete thing. And the two facets of, Hindu religion started fighting. He is nirguna, he is sarvaguna, anyway. But the thing is, this is more experiential. And some of the experiences cannot be explained. I mean, we can't even explain how a coffee tastes like for somebody who has not tasted coffee. Why go into, the existence or the experience of God? So experience it. And, Gita gives you the path. How to experience your own feelings. It's like holding a mirror to you. That's all. Sure.
So I think as a follow-up to that question, so if you've quoted or you've referenced some examples from science as a basics for this answer that you've just provided. So do you recommend, or the way that you see things, should we emphasize the science behind Hinduism for further growth, or is it better to have that intuition when the time is right for that individual person, for them to question it themselves? Or I guess what should be the first step? Should they learn about the science first and then go into this experience, or let the experience, take on for itself, and then let them start questioning and then finding the backing of things?
Yeah, a very beautiful solution is given to you, Abhirami, in the Upanishad itself. Yeti vidyaya karoti, shraddhaya upanishati, tadevam viravattamam bhavati. When you study anything, science or philosophy, go there with absolutely no bias. If you have bias, what you see in that body of knowledge is your bias. So what is there in the book will not go to the brain. So when you study this unbiased, then Shraddhaya Upanishati, then you first read it, then you know it, and then operationalize it. So what's happened right now is the followers of Shankara always will go towards Shankara philosophy. Or the followers of Ramanuja will go towards Ramanuja philosophy. The followers of Madhvacharya will go towards Madhva philosophy. They come with a predetermined bias. If you want to understand any of these three Vedic scientists, you got to get rid of it completely. You got to be unbiased. So the bias is the first thing which is very important in order to understand. So first you need to understand. Now there are different ways of doing. You cannot explain a 2-year-old. Okay, for a 2-year-old, sure, a beautiful tale of Krishna, pilfering the butter is fantastic. But as they grow, then he understands, oh, first it was the physical butter, then it is the butter of bhakti inside, and then it is the butter of the realization of the God. So these steps, Upanishad says you should never teach anything without an explanation that is fit for that environment. If you just ask the kids to say, get up in the morning and basically do your prayers, they'll say, okay, mom, I'll do it until you are there. Once you go to the office, I'm not going to do it because this means nothing. And there is nothing wrong with it. That is perfect. But Upanishad is very, very clear. And always, one last point is spirituality and science. There is a spirit behind every scientific principle, and there is a scientific principle behind every spiritual thought. One cannot live without the other. That's why in the Vedas, when we say Sugnanam Dehi, Vignanam Dehi, Bhagavad Jnanam Dehi. So without this, you cannot have one without the other.
Great, thank you. So following up to that, so Sanskrit as the basics of like literature, Hindu literature, Vedic literature, tradition, etc. How has Sanskrit influenced Hinduism, the Sanatana Dharma, and our faith? Why is it important to learn Sanskrit for Hinduism? Is there so-called quote unquote pure Hindus that know Sanskrit? And what about those that don't know Sanskrit? Can their journey still lead them to the right destination if they don't have that Sanskrit knowledge?
Samskrita was the language that was used in order to document their experiences. Okay, so when you read the original, you are basically talking to the writer and the orator directly. And as you know, Sanskrit has no alphabets. Has no lipi, right? It has no alphabets, to be very frank with you, because what we write is Devanagari, or in Tamil or in Kannada, we write the Sanskrit language. Sanskrit by itself does not have lipi, because Sanskrit was only a spoken language. And it went from pravachana to shravana, saying, hearing, and then putting it in the brain, and then remembering. Second thing is, Samskrita is it is the best etymological language. It is so scientific in its verbs, adverbs, pronouns. There is no confusion at all. And you can actually go to the root meanings, which is very, very difficult. Like, I mean, if I say, life in English, so can you go to the, is there a meaning for, life? So what is l means? Oh my God, if you take Sanskrit, every diphone has a meaning there because it is derived from the basic vibrations, right? It is derived from what the root meaning is. Without the root meaning, you can't speak in Sanskrit. You say Rama, since your name is Abhirama, I'm going to tell you something here. Maybe you'll be interested. Rama means Arama, one who is always comfortable and happy. And that is the divine, right? Nothing distracts or disturbs the all-encompassing energy. So you take the root Rama, you can make it Abhirama. You can basically make it Kalyana Rama. You can basically make it, Uddhara Rama, anything you want. But what this base root does is it gives you the qualifiers. So when you take a Sanskrit word, you can go to the root meaning. So when they say Narayana, Nara Ayana, that is that energy which can pass through everything, that is permeable to everything. And second one is when we say Agni, Aga Ni. Aga means that which doesn't move. Ni means which actually gives the power to move. So the power to move is given by the Ni Shabda in Agni. So Agni means energy. It's not only just the fire. It is any energy inside, outside, our physiological energy, everything is called as Agni. That is why they say there are Panchagnis and things like that. So that is the advantage of Sanskrit. And sometimes it becomes very difficult to really transliterate or even translate that into other languages because Sanskrit uses its etymological prowess in order to express itself. And a single word can mean different meanings during different situations. That's the reason Sanskrit was used, because they were able to express themselves very, very easily and also go to the depth. As I said, Agani, that which gives movement. So if you put a pot of water on Agni, the water starts having movement. You put it in a railway engine, it starts going forward. So that's the difference between the Samskrita language as well as other languages. And one thing is Sanskrit has evolved for the past 10,000 years. So it's a much more mature language. That's the reason Vedic scholars used it.
Great, thank you. So the next question sort of ties back into something we sort of discussed or touched upon in the introduction. So when we question, or let's say when a person questions, we risk the idea of possibly antagonizing the system of beliefs or the person to which the question is asked. So I guess to give a backing on this, like the human psychology, when we question somebody, it's not that we might be the intention might be to question the viewpoint, but the person takes it to be personal and feels that they're questioning themselves or the person is questioning them. So how do you recommend that one person questions the system of beliefs without antagonizing the person to whom the question is posed? And how can you tastefully question these age-old beliefs?
Absolutely. Before that, I want to answer this question. Can their journey still lead them to the right destination? Yes. Here, what you need to understand is Sanskrit does not give you a philosophical awakening. What gives you the philosophical awakening of the Vedic science is understanding the spirit by making your experience into an experiential evidence. Anubhava Satya, they say. So it doesn't matter. There are a lot of very highly evolved people who don't know Sanskrit but are able to understand the spirit behind it. So with that, let's go to the next one. How do you question the belief system without antagonizing it? So let's go to Upanishad itself to get us the answer it does. So there are two types of discussions. One is called as charcha. That means to say we are trying to share each other's knowledge. I'm not trying to put you down, or you're not trying to put me down. And the second one is called as vitandavada, where I am trying to put everybody down by exhibiting my control over the logic, and then my control over how I actually pitch the words, how I wordsmith it, and things like that. That doesn't yield any knowledge at all. It just yields one good thing is that, logically, you can basically turn anything to anything as long as you have the skill set, correct? But the Upanishads says it has to be a charcha. That is, means to say, you need to discuss. I would say, Abhirami, yesterday I was meditating and these are my experiences. And you say, you know what, Purna, I actually had the same thing or I had a different. So we learn from each other. That is why they always said it has to be a Vidvat Koshti or Vidvat Charcha and not a Vitandavada. Vitandavada is basically trying to show somebody's ego, which yields no knowledge at all. So there is nothing wrong in questioning. And also, diplomacy in questioning definitely helps a lot, right? It is not the words that you're using, but the tone behind the words. You could always, when you're talking, you say, Mom, Dad, you get up in the morning and there is this stone idol, and then you take the cotton swab, dip it in oil, and you light fire to it, and then you go 3 times like this, and you ask me to do that. Mom, I don't understand what the significance is. And then you offer, the food, and that stone thing doesn't even eat the food. And then you tell us, even though you are hungry, you got to wait until it is offered to the stone that doesn't eat. You're basically offering food to a stone that doesn't eat, and then you are keeping us hungry. Mom, can you explain to me what really this is? I'm asking you so that I can learn. Kids ask this all the time, but parents, unfortunately, in majority of the cases, they are busy or they don't know or they're, pissed off. They say, just do what I say and then, go on with your work. Don't bother me. So, the kids will do it until they go to college. And in college, they'll say, you know what? My mom used to do this. It had no meaning. So I left it out. It is our own fault. And there is nothing wrong in questioning. And you can question it, even the age-old traditions, because neither Shankara, nor Ramanuja, nor Madhva, nor Chakravaka, none of these people accepted anything. Everything was questioned. I mean, I can give you 1,000 examples how they revolutionized the entire philosophical thought process and how they were really able to get the cream of the Vedic thinking to the top by this non-difference and non-differential difference, and then the differential difference aspects, 3 aspects to the conceptualization of the all-encompassing energy that we call it as Advaita, Vishishta Advaita, and Tattvavada. So it is not without questioning. Everything was questioned, and it was so hard. Ramanujacharyaru there was a threat on his life. So yes, there is a way to question it. They have to be questioned. Do it in a nice way so that you don't piss off the elders. That's all. That's a practical suggestion. Yeah.
Great. Thank you for that. So I want to, rather than me asking all the questions, I would like to open it up to the audience as well and see what kind of questions they come up with. So if you give me a second, I'll go through the list of questions that have come in, and there are plenty of them. So we'll start off with this question from a young child. So namaste, this is Anjana. I'm 11 years old. I have a question. How did the rishis and sages understand and differentiate Sanatana Dharma along with science? What was their vision behind it?
Yeah, great question, Anjana. In fact, they did not differentiate at all. They saw the Sanatana Dharma in science, and they saw science in Sanatana Dharma. For example, when they basically woke up in the morning, right? What do? You go to the river or take a shower, and then you pray to the Surya Deva, because solar energy keeps us alive. Without solar energy, there is nothing. So whatever action was done, there was, number one, a scientific reason. Second thing, there was this most important characteristic that everybody should have, being grateful. Kritagnata bhava. Surya Deva, thank you so much. Because of you, we are able to survive, eat, and get on with our lives. Suryaya Tubhyam Namaha. That is all. And what is Vandane? Prataf Vandane, Madhyanika Vandane, and Sayam Vandane. Said Vandane is to basically be grateful. Acknowledge what those superpowers has given you, right? The sun, the water, the earth, the air. What have these things given you? They actually have given you life. They have given you food. You eat from the nature because you are born out of the nature and you go into the nature. Right, Anjana? So they never differentiated. They saw science in Sanatana Dharma and Sanatana Dharma in science. The only difference is our modern science has, sometimes no emotions attached to it. But Sanatana Dharma brings the attachment of the emotion. To be frank with you, an EKG, which represents the working of the heart, for the Sanatana Dharma, for Vedic rishis, there is an emotion in the EKG. We are yet to understand that. Hopefully, we'll understand that as time goes by. It is not just an EKG. It is telling you something about the pain and pleasure of the heart, which is being expressed as a two-dimensional graphic. That's the type of thought process that's there in the Upanishads.
Great. So thank you, Anjana, for asking that question. The next question somebody has asked is, since Hinduism's stronghold is in knowledge, however, Hindu knowledge and how it's used in practice varies across the diaspora, how has this helped or hindered us in our personal faith and growth and as a collective?
Yeah. So here, there has been a lot of factions of Hinduism, and the word Hinduism itself is a very loose word, right? The Sanatana Dharma or the Vedic principles doesn't mention anything about the word Hinduism, because Hinduism came because we were on the Sindhu coast, and then the Persians cannot say Sa. They basically said, Hindus, and then the British adopted it, and we all became Hindus. But in the entire Vedic literature, we don't know what Hinduism is. What we know is Sanatana Dharma. Okay, so the factions, absolutely. The easiest commodity from which you can make the maximum benefit is God. You use God's name and you build institutionalized structure, you can make a lot of money. Unfortunately, that's the truth. But what happens is, in that process, the spirit in that spirituality is lost. You become very dogmatic. You become very, ritual without knowing the meaning behind it. So there was a lot of selfish motives that were there when each of these factions came up. But there were also very good intentions in order to clarify what the Vedic literature says, because it is so huge and vast. But some people took advantage of the economical plus points that you would get and started forming those groups that actually ended up in cults. I just want to give you one thing. Neither Shankara nor Ramanuja nor Madhva supported the creation of any establishment, what we call as mathas and everything. They just wanted their students to propagate the Sanatana Dharma using the knowledge base from the Bhagavad Gita, Mahabharata, Ramayana, Pancharatra, and Brahmasutra Bhashya. And their direct descendants absolutely did that. But what happened is, as time went by, the kings started gifting these sannyasis big, large amounts of lands and treasure. So there came, as soon as you get land and treasure, you got to have a lawyer and a bank. And there everything goes to hell in a handbasket. And the spirituality completely went away. But the real spirit is there where this established constriction is removed. For example, let's take the example of the Hindu temple society. Here we are given a complete, platform to discuss, to question. to learn from each other. This is the spirit of Sanatana Dharma. That is the one that creates the vibrations. Here we are all on virtual temple here, but when we go into the physical temple, when we discuss such annals of knowledge, vibrations are created, because knowledge is created. Knowledge is vibration that never goes away. So these factions have different reasons. I mean, it can be a whole series of talks to look at how Hinduism has been taken, or Sanatana Dharma has been taken advantage of, or how Sanatana Dharma still holds its position, because even after 4,500 years we are still studying the Bhagavad Gita. Even after tens of thousands of years we are still studying the Vedas. Even though we have lost a lot of them, there is enough in order to enlighten us with our experiential evidence.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Purna Prasad. We have a few more minutes for some more questions. So the next question is, as you seek and grow, don't the questions get answered on its own or on their own?
Yes. So seeking and growing is a very important verb there. When you seek, you should know what you're seeking. And then you should have the experience that you have grown. You have to have it yourself. Nobody else can say. So when you're seeking, that's when you try to go and seek a guru. Not everybody gets a guru. And that's the reason, the scripture said, Veda eva sharanam. Veda is, of course, Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sama Veda, Atharva Veda, but the spirit behind the Vedas, which is the Vijnana. When you are studying any body of knowledge, whether it is literature, painting, philosophy, spirituality, law, constitution, one needs to understand, what am I seeking out of this? If we are just doing it to earn a paycheck, then you become very shallow. Then you can't wait to retire because there is no passion. But when that seek becomes a passion, it's a very important word that Ushaji has asked. When the seek becomes the most important, there is automatic growth inside. When there is growth, there is passion. Not only do you grow, you basically enable the entire universe around you to grow. If you take the examples of the great philosophers, Vivekananda, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, Ramana Maharshi, even Albert Einstein or Richard Feynman or any of this, J.J. Thomson, Jiddu Krishnamurti, and my own guru, Banaja Govindacharya, they were seekers. They not only grew, but they grew the environment around them. That is the power of knowledge, because knowledge is the only currency that doesn't depreciate over time. You can take that from me.
Great. Thank you. So the next question is, who is able to guide you and clarify your doubts when you embark on this journey and you do not have a guru readily available to you, or if you don't wish to ascribe to a guru at this stage of your life?
So before we say Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, there is one thing we say. Who is your Pratama Guru? Matra Devo Bhava, Pitra Devo Bhava. For every mother, father, that is their responsibility in order to create the path of spiritual learning. We now do it in order for the kids to get a job and make a living. The spirit behind it is lost in most of the cases. But as mother or as father, you are the Prathama Guru. You know where to go and get the resources. The resources are available. We just have to be very faithful to our kids. Having kids is important, but making those kids knowledgeable and a productive citizen, not only through science and technology, but through spirituality, will practically help them grow, sustain, and contribute. So the first guru is right there, mother and father. And the kids will have to see such, that Amma is my mom is my first guru. My dad is my first guru. And then when you say Matra Devo Bhava, Pitra Devo Bhava, then you say Acharya Devo Bhava. Acharya will come.
Yes. Great, definitely. So Dr. Purna Prasad, we have one more question, and we'll sort of wrap it up with this. So how do I get this? By dharma, I understand our practices, and it gets contradictory for dharma practices to be Sanatana as well, relevant for the existing kala. Can you put some light on this?
Absolutely. It's a very important question. Rashmiji, thank you very much. Because Veda says, Kalaya tasmai namaha. You have to envelop the time in the practice in order to make it timely and valuable for that time. There are a lot of practices that used to happen before, right? Ashwamedha Yaga and all those. At those times, you could sacrifice a horse. If you do that now, they're going to put you in jail. Because Veda says you have to change with the time. And it becomes contradictory, as we said, when we forget the spirit of the dharma, right? I don't want to open a can of worms, but we will talk about this. Abhirami has brought this out. For example, what's going on with swastika. They do not know the spirit of swastika according to the Vedic literature. Once we clarify them, they will be very, very happy, because the very purpose they are trying to, make swastika illegal is the reason swastika should be legal. We'll talk about it. The very word swasti itself has a very deep meaning. So one, in order to make sure that it doesn't get contradictory for dharma practices, the spirit behind the dharma has to be understood, and it has to be changed. For example, in the previous in a decade, maybe we had an hour time in the morning to sit down and do the meditation. Now you don't. You say, I can do 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes in the evening, and 10 minutes when I am in the train. Perfectly fine. Sanatana Dharma says absolutely. So these dharmas have to be very agile. We talk about agile principles and lean methodology, and the Vedic principles actually gives you the opportunity to do that, because the spirit is the most important thing and not the ritual.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Purna Prasad. There's so many more questions that are coming in, and we've noted down all of these questions to explore in the next session of the learning series, because we're sort of starting to run out of time. But I want to take the time to explore some of the positive comments and the great comments that have been coming in as well from our audience members. So great answer about the Guru and very informative discussion about our Sanatana Dharma. Thank you for the explanation. A lot of namaste symbols to you, Dr. Purna Prasad, and everybody is, I think everybody enjoyed the questions and answers and gained a lot out of it. So thank you very much, Dr. Purna Prasad.
Thank you, Abhirami. With your permission, if we could conclude this, because we concluded this with the reference, and there's another reference we have to give before we conclude, and then you can start the thing. So let me just conclude this. Harihi Om Kayena Vacha Manasindriyerva Buddhyatmana Va Anusrita Swabhava Karomi Yadyat Sakalam Parasmai Sriman Narayana Yeti Samarpaya. Dhanyosmi. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And on behalf of the New York Ganesh Temple, we're excited to continue to work with you, and AKSHAYAM in particular to continue to work with you and learn from your wealth of knowledge. So thank you, Dr. Purna Prasad.
Thank you.
So I just want to give a few announcements from the temple side before we close off for today. Some highlights of the Shivaratri celebrations. Shri Mahashivaratri Mahotsava will be observed from Monday, March 8th through Friday, March 12th, 2021. Special pujas, homas, abhishekams, and rituals will be performed to Lord Shri Shiva all of these days. And highlights of this year's Mahotsava can be found on our temple website. Some few points though. Chanting of the prayer stotras at 6:30 p.m. will take place nightly online as per usual. March 10th, Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. 108 Spartikalinga Ashtotra Nama Puja will be live. Shivratri, morning of Shivratri, Mantra Japa Homa Mahapurnahuti will be live. Shivaratri day evening, all 4 phases of the all-night vigil puja will also be live telecasted. And you can perform the Shiva Puja on Shivaratri day at 12 midnight virtually, safe at your home, with the help of our priests. For use, you would need the Spartika Linga that you can also get from the temple counter. because you would have to physically come in to get the Spartikalinga. We're not able to, mail it. Please come into the temple to purchase it. And please come in until the last time to get it would be like the day before the puja. So just keep that in mind. And this virtual participation of the service, the Sri Shiva Puja, will be on March 11, 2021, which is the Thursday at exactly 11:59 p.m. So at midnight between Thursday and Friday. Yep. And so the last thing is Shiva Parvati Kalyanotsava will be on March 12th, 2021, which is Friday at 5 p.m. live telecasted for you. And health and wellness during the pandemic, the third session, the topic of the COVID vaccine, facts and rumors, led by Dr. Madhuri Ray, a contact tracing clinical epidemiologist at New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, will take place on Saturday, March 27, 2021 at 2 p.m. And it'll be live on Temple's Facebook and YouTube pages. And as per usual, please check out all of these details and the links to all the live streaming on our Temple's website at nyganeshtemple.org. And we thank you for your continued support of our temple, and we look forward to seeing you all very soon. Thank you all. Namaste.